Yo, we're live,
Okay,
bro.
we are live.
What's up, Emma? How are you?
Hello. I have to say, whenever I hear Drake, I don't know if any of you watched Degrassi back in the day, but I just will never not think of him and his character.
Drake and Degrassi, for sure, man. For sure. I don't know. To me, he's one of the best artists. He's been staying on his ground for a whole decade. Always relevant. Yeah, Drake is the man. Shout out to Drake, man.
If you're watching Drake, you're cool.
Yeah, you're cool. We need you on our podcast. We need you on our podcast. What's up, Emma? How are you? Introduce yourself. I'm gonna let our crowd know who you are, what you're up to, what you're doing these days.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. My name's Emma Schermer Tamir. I'm the co-founder of Marketing by Emma, and we specialize in crafting conversion spiking copy for e-commerce businesses, those foundational texts that are really going to help you be able to effectively communicate with your dream customers and make them excited to buy from you.
Love it. You know, I love it when people use their name in their company, right?
Are you kidding me? They have on their website, they have Amazon listings. Talk about putting your name.
What is it called?
Her name.
Amazon.
They don't say like let's make you an Amazon listing. Let's make you an Amazon listing.
Oh, wait, so you do Amazon listings as well? You write
copywriting for Amazon? Yeah, of course.
Oh, it's a wrap. Yeah, cool. I didn't even know who we were having on our podcast. David handles that area, but I'm super excited to have you, man. Super excited.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and happy to be here.
For sure,
yes. So I have a couple questions, Emma. I'd like to just jump right in.
Let's do it.
Before we do that, I want to mention that I have to shout out Erez, who is, I mean, there's always like the person behind the scenes. I guess that's Erez, but he's really not the behind the scenes guy. He has so much personality that I feel like he should once in a while come into the spotlight. But I also have the same thing with my partner, who does not like the spotlight at all.
Shout out to Jake.
Shout out to Jake.
Shout out to Jake.
And I guess let's just I'm sure he'll watch, or he might be watching, and he's great. Definitely a good catch you got there, Emma. Very, very good guy.
I agree with you completely. Great business partner and an even better husband. So
okay, good to hear. If not, Frank will whoop him into shape. All right, don't worry about it.
No trouble.
He's a great husband. We actually just celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary.
Wow! Congrats.
Thank
you.
you.
Congratulations to you. Congrats.
Thank you.
So Emma, I'm gonna touch a subject. This is my world as well, so I'm even more excited knowing that you do this, right? A lot of people feel like they need to skip this space, right? They're like, the strategy is too expensive. There's so much going on. I want to go straight to the visuals. And the reality is that copy sells, right? Copy sells 100%. Conversion copy is where the money is. So let's elaborate on that a little bit, right? What do you say to those people that want to skip this stage and go straight to like what looks beautiful, go straight to the logo, go straight to the website? And we all know that without the foundation, everything breaks, right? So what do you have to say to those people that want to skip this process or don't see so much value in it?
Sure. So I feel like, first of all, let's not talk down to the visuals because they are definitely super important. I really see the visuals and the copy, they're like teammates. They work together to make the sale. And so you need both of them. And so while maybe the imagery is a little bit sexier and more fun, the copy is really the thing that you have to be able to control the message. Like there's that saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so that's fantastic. You can communicate so much. But the problem with that is that you might not have control over what the person is actually taking from that image unless you have text to be able to help control that message. So if you're looking at a picture of a beach and I'm looking at a picture of the beach, we may have two completely different ideas that are going through our heads. Maybe you're thinking about next weekend and the trip you're going to take. And maybe I see that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten a pedicure in, 6 months and I need to go get my toenails done. And so suddenly I'm in a completely different place. However, if there's a little bit of text on that image, then suddenly you, me, and whoever else is looking at that photo, we're all getting the message that the person that created that image wants us to get. And so that's when they're working in the most harmony, is when they're actually side by side. But you have to also understand that when you're selling online, your text is really the only opportunity that you have to be able to communicate with your customers. And so you have to communicate both those just core details to fully understand your product and how it functions. And then on top of that, you need to be able to really differentiate yourself, because it's very unlikely that what you're selling is completely different than anything else out there. And so the copy is one of the ways that you're able to communicate what makes you unique. And it may not just be the design of the product or the functionality of it. It really may be who you are as a business. And so, you can't really, you're leaving it up to just kind of, how else can you communicate that? Obviously through video, there's different creative mediums that you can do. And so when you're talking, especially about somewhere like Amazon, there's only so much real estate there. And yes, sure, some people are going to go off Amazon to research you and to see, to check out your website or your social media and whatnot. But at the end of the day, you want to do as much as you can to make them actually so certain that your product is a great fit for them that they don't need to do extra research, that they feel confident, that your product's the right one for them, and that you as a business are the right fit for their needs, and that you're going to be there in the event that there's an issue, and that you're really committed to giving the very best product possible.
I couldn't agree more, Emma. I feel like I'll take it even a step further and say that, and I know this is something that you guys do, of like marrying the graphics with the copy. And that's something that you guys offer in like the To the Moon and Back package or something like that. What's the right word for that? Over the moon.
I think you're thinking of, so there's SE Over the Moon, but that's a more basic service. I think you're thinking of the baddest brand on the block.
Baddest brand on the block. There we go. They have packages. They have packages. Everything is cool. If they're copywriters, they're going to come up with cool names for everything. Why not?
Marketing by Emma. Man.
Exactly.
Look, and this is a space that, we're talking about strategy, right? And I see that you create like the story, like the mission statement, all that stuff. Sometimes copy we create it internally for the company, right? Because even within the company, if they don't have a strategy, it's like even the customer, even forget about customers, that's what is publicly out there. But let's talk internal problems where your employees don't really understand the mission statement, where they really don't understand like the hardcore copy. And we were talking about that before we went live, right? And sometimes this is what I was talking about, where people want to skip that because they're like, no, we know what we are, we know what we stand for. And the reality is I was in a meeting with two business owners, and I had them sitting completely at the opposite side of the table, and I gave them two papers because they were like, oh no, we understand our brand, we know what our mission is, we know what this is, this and that. All right, and I came to the basics. I was like, all right, tell me 3 words that define your company. And they both wrote 3 complete opposite words, right? It was not even close to each other. And I was like, all right, that's the first one. I was like, define the color of the company. One put blue, one put gray. I was like, do you see how divided you are within yourself? And they were like, they couldn't believe it, right? That the two business owners were completely different angles towards the company. And we went in and created the strategy for them. And that's what you do as well, right? Where we're creating we call it a brand Bible. I'm not sure what you call it, right? And this is a brand Bible. You got to stick by it. You show it to your employees. You show it to the person that mops the floor, that cleans, and everybody has to be an adjustment to this strategy, right? So a lot of people need that, and they're not aware of that. So how do you overcome that obstacle of helping them understand the value of that and how important it is to have that internally before it goes out to the external?
Yeah, so I think first of all is just really expanding the concept of what branding is, because I think that most of the time people see branding as something that is just a part of marketing. And what they don't realize is that branding really encompasses all of the ways that your business engages with the world. Sure. And whenever there's not consistency, even if nothing bad is happening, that lack of consistency can actually create a huge problem for people that are interacting with your company. And so it can create confusion for employees to be able to understand how to handle a situation, but it can also create problems from the customer side, because if you're saying one thing in your mission statement and your customer support is engaging in a way that is counter to that, then there's some friction there. And that's going to, even if somebody's not sitting there with pen and paper and necessarily looking for those disconnects, they oftentimes are going to perceive that on some level. And it can end up coming across as manipulation at times, as just confusing, or just a little bit something is off. And so you don't want to create openings for that. And that can be both within your marketing. So if your social media page looks like one thing, but then your website looks like something totally different, and you're using different kinds of vocabulary and tone, and then the way that people engage and when they're chatting with somebody, when they have a problem, if there's 3 different types of personalities that they're interacting with, then it's confusing. And you see that some of the most successful brands, one of the things that they do the best is actually consistency. Like, you know exactly who they are. And so that becomes representative of something that's more than just the brand itself, but is also an identity that people want to associate with.
10,000%. If Nike was to go and open a hotel tomorrow, we can all visualize what that hotel is going to look like. Right. Yeah. So because you know what Nike does, right? So 100, you nailed it, right? It's like being consistent in a way where people have a glimpse and they know who it is already, right? Yeah. So like that's the only way to become memorable in this age era.
And so, like, you know, you were talking about these 2 business owners that you were meeting with and how they had really different opinions about things. And we are all the time making those kinds of assumptions, not realizing that we're not clear about things. But what's very interesting is it can also happen within ourselves. So I'm sure you experience this all the time, even if you just have one business owner where if you ask them to describe their company, they say contradictory things. And it's like, well, how can you be lighthearted, but also, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good contradictory example, and I'm not coming up with it. But I hope you understand my point, where we're not always 100% clear on that. And so in some ways, it's like, maybe this is getting a little bit too philosophical, but I think that great branding is actually very similar to self-discovery. And you have to dig in and understand who you are at the core before you can build on top of it. So before you can have a really great logo that captures who your business is in an image, you need to have all of this other thought and effort that you've put into things that you do before you even, you know, sit down to try to brainstorm ideas.
For sure. I'm so on board with that.
I want to take it back a little bit, Emma. I want to ask you a couple questions about your entrance into this role that you're in. So first of all, how long ago did you start Marketing by Emma?
So we started Marketing by Emma at the very end of 2016. So I guess that's 4.5 years now, something like that. Yeah, time truly flies. And it was actually, so I have a marketing background. I worked for fine dining. I worked for startups. I did various freelancing. And at the time that Marketing by Emma started, I was sort of in a transitional point with my career. So I was doing some marketing and sales for one company, but I was also looking to grow my freelancing business. And my husband, Erez, had a lot of friends that were in the Amazon space. So some of them were selling on Amazon, some of them were mentoring or providing services, and all of them.
I love where this is going. And you basically saw such a big need for this service, and you totally went, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you slowly, or maybe you took a leap and kind of went into providing this service, because there's not too many people well, I don't even know if there's a lot of people that offer the service, but forget about that. There's not a lot of people that offer a good service.
Yeah, that's the problem.
especially in Amazon.
So, you know, I mean, there are lots of great service providers and lots of questionable ones, just like there are in whatever field you're in. But I would like to take the credit and say that I saw this opportunity. It was totally Erez that saw it, and fortunately. But while both of us are stubborn, in this case, his stubbornness won out, and I eventually agreed to take on some projects. So at the time I was like, Amazon, like, what are you talking about? I didn't have any concept of, I shopped on Amazon, but I didn't understand that it was this whole business community. And it was just kind of a business was born. It was crazy. We started working with sellers and creating their listings. And then before I knew it, people were approaching us from all over the world. And something that I thought would just be kind of like a side thing turned into being both of our primary focus. And so now here we are.
You gotta love an origin story like that.
Yeah.
So clarify for a second. When you guys started, you started immediately with Amazon services. Like that's what you guys. You're not one of those companies that had a copywriting and then you said, "Oh, let's do Amazon." You started it out and you started working on Amazon projects from the beginning, correct?
When we opened our own business, we were Amazon centric. Yes. At first, at the very beginning, we were taking on some other types of projects just because, everybody's got to start somewhere. But we quickly realized that if we were going to be able to grow our business, that we needed to be really focused. And I actually love geeking out on all of the operations side of things. So like systems and processes and really automations and all of that. And so by having a focus that's so specific, it allows for us to streamline a lot of those things that it become really complicated if we were just kind of taking anything and everything.
You guys do have a unique process. I think maybe we should touch on that for a second. I know that you have like several different teams that each touch the project. Like it's not just sending it to one person, which by the way, a lot of people doing writing copy is just one guy who's trying to wear all hats. But can you elaborate a little bit on your process? I know Erez tells me sometimes first it goes to this team, then it goes to that team. So if you could clarify a little bit and tell us a little bit about the process.
I know that sometimes perfectionism is painted as something that's really negative for business owners to have. I am a perfectionist. I think that at times it is definitely to my detriment. But when it comes to the processes and the work that we do, I'm really glad that we're that detail oriented. So we have a very thorough project intake process. So before anybody even sits down to write anything, we're already doing research. We're looking at the brief from a perspective of what's missing. So what details didn't they provide that we would perhaps need to know or want to be able to know so that we can make sure that by the time that we sit down to write this, we have everything that we need to be able to position this in a way that's unique and that's going to help it stand out. So that's the first part of the process. And I truly believe that even though the writing doesn't start there, that's where the creative process begins. Because if you don't have a good, solid foundation and understanding of what it is that you are helping to sell, then you're not going to be able to do that with conviction and really help it stand out in the way that you need it to. So that's the first step. And then from there, it goes into the research and writing. So they'll do competitor research both on and off Amazon, make sure not only that that the writer's understanding what the product is, but also the customers that they're selling to, even if that involves going to places like YouTube or Reddit or Instagram to really understand what's the language that this community of people uses and how can we use that naturally so it doesn't just seem like it's forced. And then the final stage internally is the revisions process. So the editor goes through, makes sure that everything is both written really well, but also written correctly and according to Amazon's numerous rules. Because that's one of the challenges with Amazon specifically is there are all these things that you can, like one little word that you can include that could just create a lot of extra headache or even more serious problems for a seller. And so we want to make sure that that we don't send people down that rabbit hole. So through and through, review all of that, and then where my perfectionism, I guess, comes back in is then I do a final review of everything before we send it out. So very thorough. But our goal is that by the time you get it, you love it. And of course, if you need revisions, then we'll make those. But we aim for a home run on the first pitch.
Talking about.
I don't know if I successfully used a sports metaphor there because
I'm with it.
I didn't think first drafts being the final draft were a thing, but I'm gonna plug Frank here. Every video that I've ever sent to Frank, thank God he's nailed on the first draft. Like I've never had a revision, and he'll do the revisions as well. He wants the customer to be happy, like I mean any good service provider, but he actually, like my process, I'm not that good. Revisions are part of what we do. If anything, I rely on the revisions to make sure that the finished project is perfect. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a different process, but I wouldn't have believed that like you could get something done on the first draft. But if anything, I think it speaks more to the process that you have in place that you're able to do that. And I know that you guys have been around for almost 5 years, and I know the number of clients you served. I know you put that on the website. I don't want to mess that up. How many over?
Our website says 800, but it's definitely more than that. I should go do an official count, awesome. But
that's 800 is still very, very, that's very commendable. That's very good.
Thank you.
So I've worked with so many copywriters, easily over 20, 30 of them. And, you're always looking for that unique tone of voice, right? Like, as you work with some, a certain way that this one writes, a certain way that this one writes. So as you have your projects, you're like, this is the perfect fit for it, right? In your world, right, dealing with so many different tone of voices, and because that's where it gets complicated. Copywriting is easy. The problem is once you have to define a tone of voice and write in somebody else's voice is where it gets complicated, right? So how do you have different writers in your team, or is everything written by you and your husband, and then it gets I want to know that process of defining who's the perfect writer for this project.
Yeah, so I actually don't do any of the writing anymore. I have a team of writers here in Missouri. We have that.
I'm going to break you on that real quick. It's so true, man, because, I'm a designer myself, right? And at one point I was like, am I going to keep designing or am I going to run a business, right? And the day that I decided to run a business, I haven't opened Photoshop in, let's say, 3 years, which is crazy, right? Because I was so like, now I just like tweak and touch everything on top of what my team works on. But 100%, at one point is either you're going to stay as the person actually doing the work, or you're going to be, you're going to be a business owner, and you're going to be able to be on top of everybody else that's doing something. So 100%.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because while I was always a very strong writer, I think I actually excel more at being able to look at something and provide feedback for it and see what's missing or how something could be stronger. And so rather than just starting from a blank slate, I think that's actually where I'm better at anyways in the creative process. But at the same time, I have a lot of respect for people that for years they're just a one-person show, but it's a lot of work to be responsible for every single part of running a business and then also expending all of that creative energy to make sure that the work gets done. So I understood that I was not going to be able to do both. But also that allows us to, every writer has their strengths. And I feel confident that even if I had to ask them to do something that was outside of their wheelhouse, with the support of everybody else on the team, and, if they need extra time to do extra research or extra sort of like rounds of drafts internally, then I know they'd be able to do a good job. But having that team also allows for a diversity of knowledge and strengths and opinions, which are all helpful to make sure that we are able to deliver the very best.
I love it.
So Emma, I love to always try to give a little bit of, like let's just say somebody, it's not in the budget right now to hire copywriters, like Frank was saying. It could be that there's no do's and don'ts or tips and tricks that you can share, or that are simple enough to just be like, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I'm wondering if there's anything that you can give from your experience, obviously, for someone who's maybe trying to do it in house and trying to, like maybe like the do's and don'ts might be the easiest.
Sure, let's do it.
Do you have anything I'll let you just, give your 2 cents on that and just try, like someone who obviously the hope is that they listen to your advice, that they implement it, that it actually increases their business, that their business has a bigger budget, and that they can actually come to you. So hopefully this starts that chain reaction. But
honestly, I'm happy if people even just walk away feeling more confident about either the work that they're doing themselves or the work that they're reviewing that they've hired somebody to do. I think that a lot of people's confidence and their ability to really look critically at a piece of writing is not as strong. Like they might be able to say, I don't like it, but to then be able to articulate why they don't like it or what doesn't work is a vocabulary or a knowledge that hasn't been strengthened for a lot of people. So I would say the first thing that you can do if you are not a natural writer is actually take a step back from the computer and imagine that you are just having a conversation with one of your customers. You could even go and, do this. You could go to a store that sells a similar type of product and just have a conversation with somebody. But even just imagining a conversation, truly picturing a person that you're talking to, and think about, what would be the arc of how you would, sorry, I just hit the microphone. What would be the arc of how you want to present things, and what would you want to make sure that you told them? What would you say is something that would excite them? And really just thinking about it in a conversation form before you sit down to write will both make that white screen seem a little bit less intimidating, but it will also allow for a more natural presentation, because what happens when you don't have experience with this is that you sit down and you kind of just end up getting into descriptive mode. So this microphone is compatible with a Apple and PC. It is, 5 pounds, and it feels very stilted. So I would say that's the first thing, is to pretend like you're just having a conversation and think about the points that you would make in conversation, and also really picture who you're talking to. The second thing is, people naturally, when you're writing, you're going to want to say a lot of our company or we do this. And it's natural when you're in that descriptive mode that I was just talking about. But you want to really put the customer at the center, because it's ultimately this person has typed in whatever query they have and they've landed on your listing or your website or wherever they've found you, and they have a problem that they want to solve, or something that they want to achieve through the product that you're selling. So putting them at the center is very important. So we've already started to do that by picturing them and imagining the conversation, but now we want to shift that language slightly and make it about them. So whenever you want to say we or our or this or the microphone, all of those types of words, it's okay to use them a little bit. But if you see a lot of them, which that's like when I'm looking at an Amazon listing and critiquing it, those are always things, like one of the first things that jump out at me. And even big brands make this mistake all of the time. So just looking for an overuse of that kind of language is a really good indication that you're not being customer centric with your language. And then I would say the third thing that you need to do is you really have to understand what makes you different. And not just understand it, but you have to really commit to going there. So a lot of times what I'll see is that people will say, we serve this group of customers, but also everybody else. And so it's like, there's not that full commitment to the differentiation that really brings that conviction and helps set you apart. So it's very tempting to want to sell to everybody, but if you can be specific and really speak to that target customer group, then you're not excluding the other people that don't fit directly in it, but you have a stronger likelihood of having a more effective conversation with them than if you just kind of water things down. Because essentially, the broader that you make your customer base, the more diluted your argument is going to be, and the less convincing you're going to be, because you're going to go from this specific type of parent to just any caregiver. And so obviously, 30-year-old college educated person that everything in their house is made from sustainable materials, and they went to a upper tier university and their income is above $200,000 for their household, and all of those things, it's going to paint a very different picture than a single parent who is working, just getting by, and doesn't necessarily have the same luxury to be able to be so selective with the types of products that they're buying. And so they have different types of concerns that you want to address. And if you're trying to sell to both of them, then it's just going to get really kind of watery. So that kind of ties back into what I was first saying, which is having that clear picture of who your customer is, and then through and through with every step of the process, keeping them at the center.
For sure. You dropped some heavy gems there.
Yeah, that was more than I thought we would get. So
I can keep going.
I love it. Maybe we should have a round two with Emma.
I would love to. In general. So Emma, we love to have. This podcast is not traditional.
Yeah.
Having my mistake. We have cameos. So like, we'll potentially like invite somebody to just pop in for 2 minutes. We just figured there's enough serious podcasts out there. So although we'll always try to deliver value, a lot of times if we get the 5 p.m. slot, we'll do happy hour. We'll pour a drink, and we try to keep it very light. And again, I think value is the most important thing in the world, which, obviously that matters very much on who we're bringing on. And sometimes, take this as a compliment, by the way. Most of the times we have 2 guests, but sometimes we feel that 1 guest is just more than enough for delivering all that value. And that's definitely that's definitely the case here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys have been so complimentary. We need to hang out more often.
Well, me and Aaron already made a deal that when you guys finally come to New York, I don't know if you know, but Frank and I, we do dinners. We like food. And a little birdie told me that Erez can eat sometimes. So we'll see.
No, he eats like a bird, and I hate food. And I hope that the sarcasm translated through the screen, because I think that one of the few things that's kept us going through this whole pandemic is finding tasty food to eat. That became like the one exciting thing that we could continue.
I think the one business, well, the 2 businesses that skyrocketed during Corona was Amazon and food. That was if you're in those industries,
you crushed it.
2020 was a good year for you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So look, I'm glad that David brought that up about people that maybe might not have a budget. I'm completely the opposite. Hire an expert. Figure it out. Hustle. Get your money up. This is just the reality. And I always say this, if you think it's expensive hiring an expert, wait till you hire an amateur. You're going to spend so much more, because after you're done with him, you're going to have to hire another 20 people to be able to fix the mess that he created. So figure it out, hire an expert, get it done right the first time. And that'll save you a lot of money, time, headache, and energy.
Oh, I totally agree. I've sometimes made those mistakes, especially earlier on in the business, where budgets were a little bit tighter, and it's never worth it to go cheap. I would actually say, if it's between the 2, do it yourself than to just hire somebody just money. Purely based on budget. But what's also with a lot of these things, it's important to look at them in a slightly different way, and that can be helpful as well. Because, for example, if this is something that you're investing in, but then it's good and it will be able to function independently for quite a while, obviously you'll want to continue to update whatever it is, whether it's a website or an Amazon listing over time, but it doesn't need constant touching all the time. So it's something that once you get right, it can keep going.
That's a great point.
The
investment you put into it is nothing compared to what you'll get out of it. Sorry, continue.
Right. Oh, no. Well, so I'm just going to say also something that has such a direct impact on all of the other money you're spending. So a lot of times, like let's say PPC or really any advertising that you're doing, that is generating traffic. Yeah. So then you're sending that traffic somewhere. And so if wherever you're sending that traffic isn't optimized to be able to convert as much of that traffic as possible, then you're throwing money away. So it's important to really kind of understand the full picture and how all these things work together, because a lot of times when I'm talking with people, they get really nervous and they tend to want to just put more traffic in and thinking that that's going to fix everything. But throwing more traffic somewhere that is not going to perform the way you need it to is just going to waste a lot of money and create a lot of stress. And it can also negatively affect your performance when it comes to a place like Amazon, because they're factoring in things like conversion rate when they're determining ranking. And so it's not an arbitrary number that's only representative of, what percentage of sales you're making. It is influential on your ability to also make future sales.
100%. 100%. So that's I feel like we say this all the time when we're selling services. Obviously you could always start smaller and do one or two or three and see the proof in the pudding, and then invest bigger. And I in general, this whole Amazon business is something that there's like I love this saying. If you had the opportunity to open a store in the middle of Times Square with the potential for millions of people to for foot traffic of millions of people to come in and see your product, you're not gonna have the shelves half empty and the carpet all messy and the walls unpainted, and who in their right mind would do that? And the reality of the situation is, on Amazon, you have millions of people who have the potential of seeing your product every single second, every single day. So to not invest into it properly and to not do your due diligence and hire professionals to get the right job done, you're wasting your time, and you got to be, all kinds of not, I don't want to insult anybody, but it's just it's not great, and it's not a great position to be in. And I just think that in general, if anything happened over this past year of the pandemic, Amazon and e-commerce is roaring, and it's not going anywhere. And especially in today's world of competitiveness, you gotta make sure you put the investment into your brand and put the time and energy into making sure that you can retain that traffic and that flywheel effect of Amazon. But yeah, I really think that anybody who needs services, anybody who needs copywriting, you'd be losing out like terribly if you don't at least try out Marketing by Emma. I personally have sent a bunch of my clients, and I will continue to do so, because I'm a big fan of quality. So I always like to surround myself with people who are perfectionists and detail oriented and quality above all.
In translation to all of this, go hard or go home.
Exactly.
Let's just say how it is.
Fortunately, since I work at home, I can go hard and then I'm home.
So you got to come up with a better line now.
I hear that. So Emma, believe it or not, I remember right before we got into this live, I was like, this is going to be one of those 20-minute lives, right? I was telling you, and it's crazy how interesting this podcast has been. We're 40 minutes in. When me and David created this, we're going to have a cool, short, 15, 20-minute vibe, right? We want to do things differently, but you drop so much value, man, that we're at 40 minutes, and
yeah,
I'm loving it.
We always say if the value's there and it's a good episode, we never stop anything good.
I can't say that my biggest skill is being super short with my words. When I'm writing, I can be very concise. But when I start talking about this stuff, I just
we geek out. We geek out. That's what it is.
I hear you. Yo, Emma, thank you for coming, man. I'm so excited.
Let's get some outro music.
I don't know why David hasn't introed me to you earlier. So
you say that about everybody
that's a conversation
that you really want to
have with him right after. He's going to hear it because he knows I'm always using copywriters, so I'm going to get at him about that. But all right, God's plan. That's what I'm talking about, bro. I'm with it. Emma, thank you for coming. I'm going to hit you up right after this. For those of you that need good copywriting, hit up Emma. If it comes from David, it's a good source. David is a master connector. So if he says it's good, guess what? It's good. Okay. All right? If he says it's good, it's good. Shout out to Amazon. We were at a meeting where we gave David the title. He is Amazon, right? He knows it so well.
No.
So no, I'm giving it to you. I don't want to hear it. He is Amazon. He understands Amazon. If you need Amazon services, hit up David. If you need copywriting, hit up Emma. Forget about me for a moment. We have two solid people here, and thank you for showing up. Thank you for the ones that are viewers. Thank you for the supporters, and peace out.
Thank you.